Hi and welcome to Whatcha Making. Today in the shop we're participating in the Summer's Woodworking 2x4 Challenge 2016. The challenge is, what can you make out of a single 2x4? So here's me trying to make something out of a 2x4, and I decided to start off by cutting 3 pieces 30 inches long. Then I decided to square them up, take off the round over edges so that I can glue the boards together. Lots of glue went into this project. A few boards top and bottom just to try to keep the boards as flat as possible. And to get rid of any uneven edges, I run it through the planer just to smooth it out as much as I could. Then slice it in half, and then glue the two halves back together to make a taller block. I wasn't wasting time with that little nozzle for this. I needed to get a lot of glue on there and fairly quickly and easily. And what's the point of gluing anything up unless you can get your hands covered in it, your clamps covered in it, and everything else covered in it? I decided I was going to make a bandsaw box, but not just any bandsaw box. I'm making a puzzle box. I'm making one bandsaw box that's the shape of a heart, and then within that there are going to be 4 distinct boxes that are all unique and individual. I like to use a zip tie to make my curves for the bandsaw. I find it makes nice smooth curves, and then I can just fill in the rest by hand. But just to do the curved edges, I use that tie that gives me something nice and neat to use. And there's my 4 boxes. Let's cut them all out. I wanted to make sure the boxes remained, that they were able to join up together. I didn't want to over sand them because I didn't want to lose the edge where they touch each other, because I want them to fit together as a puzzle. So I did end up leaving my project a little bit rough, but I prefer that rather than having it too smooth and not sit properly. Here I decided to drill a little hole in it that's going to hold a dowel pin, and that's for the lid to sit on. Now in my case, my bandsaw is not big enough for these boxes to go through, so I had to make a little jig that I could hand saw the front and back off the box, so that then I could take the inside of the box and hollow it out. And then of course, glue it back together. Lots of glue. And then glue the bottom back on the box. I decided to round over the edges of the lids, but it's the only thing that I did round over. Again, I didn't want to lose the shape of the box. I didn't want the puzzle not to go back together. So a little light sanding and the lids got rounded over just so they weren't sharp. And then I decided to stain them. Pine doesn't really take stain very well, but it did okay. I wanted to make the center box, which is my mother's box. That one, I wanted it to be its own distinct color. And then the other 3 boxes, which are me and my sister's, I made them a lighter color. And here I decided to glue in the dowel with a little leaf shape on the top. The purpose of it also is so that I can burn our initials into the top of it, so each box is identified as to whose is whose. Wood burning is actually quite a bit of fun. And for the boxes, I put the initial of myself and my 2 sisters, but for Mom's box, I just wrote Mom on it. She's the center of it all. I also wanted to do a little bit of flocking inside the boxes. I find it gives it more of a professional look. I realize this is just a 2x4, but even still, I think flocking gives it a bit of pizzazz. The trick I've discovered with flocking is that after you pump the powder onto it, leave it alone. Don't touch it, don't look at it, don't breathe on it for 12 hours. That way the flocking takes very nicely. And just to make the pins slide a little easier, I added some wax to them, just so that when they're sitting in the box itself, you can tip it back and forth and it doesn't have too much resistance. And then, of course, a little wipe-on poly goes a long way, just to finish it off. Now, I did have a specific purpose in making 4 individual boxes. My sisters and I have recently had to deal with a few issues with my mother aging and helping her out in that aspect. And what we've come to realize is that we're all very different, we're all very unique, we're all definitely individuals. But at the end of it all, we all belong as a family. And that's why I wanted to make these that come together, make the heart, and join together as a family. I love you, girls.